listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Ridley Scott, get away!
Welcome to the House by the Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Sean.
Hello.
And Derek.
Hello.
And we'll be talking about Alien, the Ridley Scott classic that redefined what people thought of when they saw an egg. Is that movie cover, even if people haven't seen the movie Alien, they have seen the cover to that movie. It's one of the more iconic movie posters of all time. And one of the more iconic catchphrases, too. Because it was, of course, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah, which is funny because it's on that movie, and I believe like Killer Space Clowns from Outer Space or something also has the similar tagline to it.
What was their tagline? Look it up real quick.
It was something real close. It's like in space, nobody hear you ice cream or something. It was something really stupid, but it was like something really similar to the Alien.
I watched that film once in high school with Joey Roby.
Let's see. It doesn't say on the poster. It's on.
The one I see says alien bozos with an appetite for close encounters.
So basically the same thing.
In space, no one can eat ice cream.
That's what it is. Okay, I knew it was something real similar.
That's pretty good.
Because I remember when I used to go to Blockbuster, that was one of the movies that we always looked at but never rented, and that was on the actual movie, like in the front of it. But it was like something really, I knew it was something real goofy like that.
Yep.
But anyway, the movie's not related to that.
So before we get into discussing Alien, we're also going to briefly run through the things we've been watching and some news. And just to touch on the things we've been watching recently, I know that me and Sean have both watched the premiere of American Horror Story, which, if you have been living under a rock, has Lady Gaga in it, as they call her, or Lady Gaga. And it is set in a hotel called the Cortez.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, I think they heavily... All the advertisements are like people walking through a hotel and stuff. I mean, it's got like a pretty big cast. But one thing I think that's kind of funny about this is I was watching it, and they have like there's been a few people that did a post about, I think it's Vanity Fair, I'll have to look and see, but they did a post of all the main male leads in the show, like all the white guys. And it's kind of funny because like people always joke about like, oh, well, people from different races are interchangeable and they all look the same. Like a lot of these dudes all do kind of look the same that are in this show.
Yeah, they absolutely do. It was almost, I wouldn't say it was confusing, but it's very hard to define the characters. You know what I mean? They all feel like their identities blend together. And also, I don't think a lot of them were necessarily that well written, a lot of the male characters.
Yeah.
So that was another issue too. Like, they don't have a visual identity. I mean, of course, Lady Gaga's boyfriend, you know, he wore eyeliner, so you know.
He's
I could tell him apart.
So is it? I believe Matt Bomer is his name. He's actually gay, but like if a gay man was gonna meet the woman, Lady Gaga would probably be it.
Well, for some reason, like I've watched a lot of, I'm going to say this, I've watched like a bunch of random episodes of the different types of American Horror Stories or seasons, whatever. But like, there's never really been anything that was that strong to draw me consistently in. Like what I've watched isn't bad, but it's just like something about it. I don't know. It just never really made me want to follow it conclusively. Like I don't want to really, because like the last one, I forgot what exactly it was, but it was like the carnival theme, right?
Yeah, Freak Show,
which like the ones that I watched, they were never bad. Like they were usually pretty good. And the clown guy was pretty creepy looking from what I saw. And it was interesting, but just something about it just kind of lost me a lot where I never really cared to watch it episode per episode.
So like the show itself, so it's had multiple seasons. The first season was Murder House, which is about like a haunted house. Season 2 was Asylum, that was set in an insane asylum during like the 60s, like a period piece. And the third one was Coven, about witches. The fourth one was Freak Show, and the newest one is Hotel, which is about a hotel. And out of all the seasons, the one that people tend to like the most is the second season, Asylum. But I think that's mostly because of the heavy involvement of Tim Minier, or how you pronounce his last name. Who is
Minotaur?
No, not a Minotaur. Well, there was a Minotaur in season 3 of the show. But Tim Minier was also heavily involved in like Firefly and Angel and different like Joss Whedon things. So I think like he had a little bit of sensibility for like a cohesive season versus some of these other ones that all kind of been like scattershot and kind of fall apart at the end.
Well,
But,
even this episode, I feel like it didn't really have a lot of weight. I feel like the story didn't have a lot of weight to it. There was some like interesting scenes throughout it, but the story didn't pull me in yet. I feel like there wasn't a lot of story development throughout. They just was showing you snippets, which I understand. This is like an episode about introducing the characters, but I almost felt like they should have sprinkled those out throughout this, maybe like a couple episodes rather than try to like introduce you to everybody up front and have them make their entrance and their own little scene. Cause it amounted to little by the end of it. And it kept losing me throughout the episode.
Well, I think the hardest thing about like any horror TV series, which I mean, just watching the ones that like Scream, I never cared about. Like I watched the first episode. Not that I've watched a lot of them because I've watched one episode of Scream and I've watched Scream Queens. But I think like the biggest, and some other stuff too. Like I watched some American Horror Story, and there's probably other stuff I'm forgetting that I've watched. But like I think it's just like with the exception of like X-Files, they were like sci-fi, and they had some episodes with horror elements into it, but it was like they just kind of jumped around most of the time. But I think it's like hard to do a slasher or just because a lot of times you're looking at 10 to 15 episodes. And some movies that are just 2 hours long have problems, or not even 2 hours long. Some are like an hour, 10 minutes. They have trouble keeping you involved in it.
Yeah.
So then you stretch that flimsy of a premise for a lot of these movies or TV shows have, and you make it, because American Horror Story is about an hour, with after commercials about 45 minutes to 50 minutes long. So, I think Scream Queens and all of them have that. I don't know if it's that problem yet, but I think it's just hard to make it interesting every single episode and have meaningful things that happen in something like that because you typically get filler for a lot of it. You're like even The Walking Dead has a lot of problems like that.
Well, there's actually like an article that came out this past week that Todd Vanderwerf from Vox.com, formerly the AV Club, posted about how like horror on TV is hard. And, made good points like about a lot of times horror is about building up like suspense and tension and things like that. And you really can't do that over the course of like 15 episodes or 22 episodes if it's a show that's that length. So it's typically they take horror elements and attach them to a like pretty standard genre show. So like American Horror Story, like the first season is kind of like a family drama with a latex rapist suit dude and ghost and stuff. But like, so you have to kind of take like a standard, like The Walking Dead. Even though there's zombies in it, it's not about the zombies. It's about the like personal relationships of the characters. So it's like a soap opera with zombies. And there's been very few shows that are actually like a hardcore horror show from beginning to end, and that's all they focus on. Yeah,
because I just don't think it's something you can really do because, like I said, even movies that are only about that have problems. Like you go and watch Halloween, or you go and watch some of the most iconic horror films of all time. Generally, there's like 15 minutes of stuff in the movie that's actually like horror related, and the rest of it's just character development or just different situations that aren't horror related.
Yeah, I think it's something it's sort of a new territory. Granted, it's been done many times before in TV, but as far as the boom that's happening right now, it's probably just something that's got to be figured out. Like I think somebody will kind of crack a format that works pretty well. That'll be for like a season-long show or something. Of course, like, Tales from the Crypt and Tales from the Dark Side and all that stuff, like, works wonderfully because they can tell one episode and it's, can be a compacted story and reveal things and resolve things, like in a half hour. But I think it's something people are just going to try to probably figure out over time. It's like there isn't a huge precedent for well-done horror TV like there is nearly every other genre.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of bring it back to American Horror Story Hotel. Like the first episode, had like some sexual violence and some stuff that was kind of crazy, but like story-wise, there really wasn't much going on. There was even some sections that were kind of just mostly set to music without any dialogue. Now, the show has previously had an episode that included like a musical number, so I would not see this. Like, I wouldn't think it's out of the question for this season to have that happen.
Well, this is the creator of Glee, also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, too, yeah, like I didn't necessarily even like the music in this. Really, I don't think they were like perfect choices to carry the scenes like they attempted to do. I mean, I'm sure some people probably loved the way it worked out, but it felt very theatrical and almost like a musical to me, where it didn't have a lot of weight to what was happening. It was just you were supposed to be entertained and along for the ride, but it didn't work out completely for me. So I just I didn't enjoy it, I think, as much as they were intending to, because a lot of times music can really move a scene and help things along and kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting if done right. But it just didn't work for me.
Well, and too, like one thing I think, just the fact they so heavily hyped the involvement of Lady Gaga, like you kind of knew the audience they're going for. And from what I've seen from a lot of the audience, they liked it. So I guess kind of mission accomplished.
Yeah, as long as you're getting your key audience to like it, then that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Now, you also want to get other people involved, but she has such a big following anyway that a lot of people like her are probably going to give the show a chance just because of her if they never watched it.
I thought she did a really good job. I liked her character and stuff, and everything I saw in the episode, she did a good job.
Well, yeah, I think anytime you can be a show like that and get a big name, she's
a big name. She's absolutely a big name.
Yeah, she's a big name, and I think that it helps. And if she can go be in the show and do her part effectively, it makes it even better because you don't let the people down. If you put a big name in it and they're terrible, then But if she can do what she's doing good, that's only going to help the show.
And it's not the same thing, but she is more of a personality than your typical actor. Their role is to be an actor, and they, if done right, they kind of can change character. They can change their characters, and they don't get, if they're lucky, they don't get typecast necessarily. But she's almost like not as far as acting caliber, but like a Tom Cruise. Like when you see a Tom Cruise movie, you're like, oh, I'm watching Tom Cruise do this stuff. Because everybody really is so familiar with him, and he's just like such a strong personality. I think as far as the music world goes and entertainment, she's a very strong personality, so you can kind of throw her in there and let her do her thing, and she brings a lot to it just based on who she is. Which, Kathy Bates is kind of a big, she kind of has some of that as well too, but actually I enjoyed Lady Gaga more than Kathy Bates in this.
Yes, I think of this show as kind of a wait and see approach.
Are you going to continue watching it?
Well, I don't have cable, so I would have to pay for these episodes individually. It was free on Google Play this weekend, so that's how I watched it. If it gets decent enough reviews and people I trust like it, then I'll probably watch it. But other than that, I might just wait for it to hit Netflix like I do with all the other seasons.
Yeah, we don't really need to cover it for the site.
Yeah, it's not really our key audience.
So otherwise, I don't think I'm going to watch another episode. If it's on, I'll definitely turn it on now that I'm kind of familiar with it. But yeah, it's just moving into Scream Queens a little bit. I didn't even finish that entire episode just because I got busy. But that felt more my speed, and I enjoyed that a lot so far.
I think the thing I really enjoy about Scream Queens is in taking consideration the last time I've watched 3 consecutive episodes, because finally my TV's fixed. Or my cable or whatever on TV, so I can actually watch it now.
It took AT&T a month, right?
Yeah, no. I've been in this. I bought this house 2 months ago, and 3 months ago, and it took them 3 months, and it still kind of messes up from time to time. But yeah, so I've actually started to record it because usually I don't watch anything consecutively. But all 3 episodes have been paced pretty well. There's not really, like I said, do I know if they can keep it up? I don't know. But I really like what I've seen so far, and they just continue to get. They're not now any episode's more enjoyable than the other. They just both have all 3 of them have their moments so far. The only thing that worries me with that is because is this a 15 season episode or 15 episode season?
Yeah, it's gonna. So too, recently the ratings for this show have been coming in. They haven't improved episode to episode. They've actually fell from every episode. So it's kind of. Previously, it sounded like they're pretty much a sure thing to have a second season, and this season is 15 episodes. But as of right now, it's a little bit more in doubt as to whether or not it will get a second season. Part of that's just because it gets a lot of views. like, so you have like the rating system, not to get into that because it's kind of boring. There's like the live day or the live plus 1 day, which is the ratings that most people look at like the next morning. But then the live plus 7 days includes like DVR plays and takes into consideration things like Hulu streams and iTunes downloads and things like that. So it does pretty well when those ratings are tallied, but like on TV, it's not doing great.
Well, because like I work a weird shifts. I work 1 to 9:30, so by the time I get home, it's already over. So I have to DVR it. You know,
I mean, most people our age probably don't watch a lot of TV like day and date the time it airs.
And when does this come on? I would assume Sunday night.
Tuesday.
When is it? Tuesday. Okay.
It comes on after the.
Didn't Glee come on Sundays or something?
No, I think it's Tuesdays most time. It comes on after the show with Rob Lowe and Fred Savage.
Yeah,
and,
so it's kind of like a
the one with
weird
John
transition.
Stamos. So it's like their comedy night. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, maybe this would pair much better with Sleepy Hollow or something.
Yeah, I think the thing too hurts it though is like I think people who are probably into Glee or those when they think of that show, they probably aren't that interested in it. And then the people that are like the hardcore horror film guys and girls are like, man, it's stupid, it sounds dumb. And they never watched it, and it's like give it a shot. And because I generally hate a lot of stuff, and I really like this.
Yeah, you're a big time hater.
Yeah, like I hate a lot of different stuff, and like for example, the Eli Roth crap fest y'all watch. Like, I have no interest in watching that. I don't want to watch it, but some people who might love it.
I think we need to like trick you into watching it one day, like hold you down Clockwork Orange style and open your eyes and make you watch this.
Or no, just like
and
edit
thrash around in your seat.
We can just edit it into the middle of something else.
But like I don't know, I just feel like I was really surprised with that because I think it's a really good show, you know, and just because I think it's good doesn't mean everybody else does, but it just seems like to me be something to pick up steam because I don't know, it's kind of around that time of year that would seem to be popular,
well,
you know.
I mean, it's for me right now. What's on as far as the big horror TV shows? It's the one I've enjoyed the most by far. I think.
One, two, like you know. These are all kind of more mass market shows, really, that are not aimed at like a hardcore horror crowd. At least with Scream Queens in the past few episodes, they have referenced like classics. Oddly enough, they've referenced a lot of things that we've covered.
Yeah, which is really funny because they've done Texas Chainsaw, then they done Children of the Corn, and then they did the Leprechaun.
They mentioned something in the first episode that was kind of specific that I remember, and I think we covered it too. I can't remember what it was though, or maybe it was just something I liked.
But it's just kind of funny, though, that, you know, those are, well, Texas Chainsaw is not obscure, but when you get into Children of the Corn and Leprechaun, Leprechaun's more of an obscure movie to reference, I think, because especially the scene they used, if you're not really, the only reason why I knew that was Leprechaun is we just recently watched it and discussed it, you know, but if I hadn't, I probably wouldn't know what movie that was from.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd seen parts of that movie. It's not one they show on TV a lot, but... You know, that box did have Jennifer Aniston splattered all over it when she became popular after the fact. But so you know, once again, like Scream Queens, so far it stayed entertaining. Mostly, I'll continue watching it unless it just has a huge drop in quality. But American Horror Story a little bit more wait and see as to how it turns out. So I guess like Sean
and real quick, tonight is the premiere of The Walking Dead because we record these on Sunday nights typically.
Yes, I have. I did not get to watch it yet, but
I did not have good things to say about that show last week. Well, it's not that I hate that show. It's just that, like I said, like it's just so much potential for it to be probably better than what I've seen. Now, in all fairness, have I watched every single episode? No. But every episode I've ever watched, they're like looking for toilet paper, or they're looking for a girl, or somebody lost their keys in a zombie, or something stupid. And it's like, meh. But, I would have
lost their keys in a zombie.
I don't know. It's like, oh, zombie.
Well, I think it's
find the zombie.
It's a show that like it's more about the characters, and if you're not in on it and you don't watch all of it, you really can't jump in.
It's essentially Days of Our Lives with zombies in it.
We don't have to bash it. I mean,
I'm not bashing it, but that's like what we talked about earlier. Most of these horror-related shows are essentially a soap opera. It's like wrestling. You just have a general theme, and then you just have ridiculous things happen.
Well, don't let Corey hear you badmouth wrestling.
Oh, no, I love wrestling. I've never badmouthed wrestling.
Well, I haven't watched wrestling since about 1999, maybe.
It's not as, like... it's not as we're not getting to wrestling discussion, but Stone Cold. I don't know. I can't get into it. We go on forever. But no, I would never bash wrestling because it's.
But
And where I work is like
I
right
listen to the Giant Bombcast, and they go into wrestling discussion about once a week, and they take like 20 minutes to explain some elaborate backstory, some characters, some convoluted story. Normally, I find it pretty interesting, but yeah, I don't.
there's a lesbian affair going on, and somebody crashed the other person's car into a hospital and killed a disabled child, and that child's
it's
actually
just-
the great grandchild of Vincent Mann's.
Like if you look at some of the stuff that like Hulk Hogan that Stone Cold used to do, Vince McMahon, like he would be in prison like 5 times over because one time he like sodomized him with what was
medical
it?
equipment.
Yeah, we beam in the head the bedpan, and then he shocked him with the defibrillator, and then he shoved something up his butt.
Whoa.
You know, and it's like, all right, Stone Cold, you'd be arrested.
See, you know, they mentioned on the podcast too. It's like the best way to experience wrestling is to kind of dip your foot in every now and then, hear a little bit about it, and then get out.
All right.
Yeah, I would say just real quick, if you live in Louisville, Kentucky, you need to go to Expo 5 and experience OVW at least once because it's very
Or
interesting.
you can. We did a video last year. It's still up on our YouTube and the site. From was it something Hardcore Harvest?
Harvest Homecoming? I don't know. It is
EPW Evolution.
I don't
Pro
know.
Wrestling.
Some of those guys get the shit beat out of them. You know?
there's some
like you
brutal
look at
stuff in that video.
Yeah, you look at what they do, and I don't know how much money they make, but some of it's just got to be like pure passion on their part because some of them take like legit beatings. And
We
you know,
Yep.
we shot this behind a strip club, so I don't think they were making a lot of money. But yeah, they were super passionate, and they had a House by the Video Store match that Corey is friends with some of the guys because Corey's really big into wrestling.
Yeah, he somehow negotiated that.
Yeah, and they throw somebody through a. They had a giant VHS boxes. Corey stole his dad's collection of VHS tapes that has like, you know, I think every maybe NFL game, you know, from like
I think he says every UK and UVL football and basketball
Yes.
game from like 1991 to 2000 something.
yeah, the VHSs. So they were dropped on those, and then he got a big projection TV that somebody gets thrown into. So check that out. It's pretty entertaining. It's only a few minutes long, but that was a fun experience. But I don't ever care to go back.
now we're gonna segue from people wrestling it behind a strip club to a Ridley Scott film, correct?
Well,
Well,
real
yeah,
quick though, I want to mention, you know, I call him a friend of the site. He was a guy we did an interview with last year at Scarefest, Scarefest 2014. He was the founder of the Western Kentucky Ghostbusters. His name was Ryan E. Kemp. He recently passed away this past week. So he's like, you know, huge outpouring from all his fans because, you know, it's like those people that are like, they have Ghostbuster societies essentially, and that's like a really tight knit group, and they have them in different cities and everything. So they were even tweeting Paul Feig and asking him to like put him in the credits, and Paul Feig like retweeted him. It was like, you know, it was awesome meeting him. Like he remembered the interaction. Ryan was just like a super nice guy. He was like awesome to talk to. Like it was fascinating just talking to him for a while. So we did an interview with him, which is on the site. And then also there's another little interview with him from our Scarefest 2014 video. But like aside from just doing the interview, my wife and I, we sat there and talked to him forever, just about everything. Like super nice guy. He said one of his favorite things to do was around Halloween, him and I guess people that are part of the Ghostbusters society he's in would dress up and go to like hospitals as the Ghostbusters and give the kids candy and stuff. And the donations, they were taking like photos with, what's the big painting from Ghostbusters?
Oh, the mural of was it Vigo?
Vigo, yeah. They have a big one of those, and you could like take your picture with them for $1, and all that went to like a children's hospital and stuff. So they did a lot of great work. He was a super passionate guy. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say that because some of his friends were resharing the video and stuff, and I, you know, it just kind of brought up discussion again. But yeah, check it out. And if your friends or family listening, he was an awesome guy. So sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it's always terrible whenever people just go, but
Yeah, Nicole, my wife, we were there together. She was helping me shoot this, and she keeps saying, she's like, man, that's so sad. That's so sad. Like he was a super nice guy, and you meet him once and you don't forget him. So yeah, it's very tragic.
Yeah, so to move on to a little bit less somber note, before I get into discussing Alien, to kind of tie the news into the video from this past week that we put out a video that was the Evil Dead trilogy in less than 5 minutes. And that's where I just kind of go through and break down what happens in each of the movies, keeping the continuity straight.
Which is not easy to do with those films. It's not.
People forget. So, like, the first movie ends. The second movie, Evil Dead 2, begins. And it essentially takes until, like, 14 minutes into the movie to reach the point that's really taking off, like, is the actual sequel element. Because the first part's just kind of like a remake of the first movie in, like, 10 minutes. Because they couldn't get the footage from the original movie. So, so in that video, I kind of show, like, well, here's the point where the sequel really starts. And then Evil Dead 2 ends, and then Army of Darkness starts at a different spot.
Yeah.
And instead of him being like a hero, he's a slave. And there's like a third actress that plays the character of Ash's girlfriend in the beginning of that movie.
Yeah.
And
so even if you're familiar with the continuity and everything and why they did certain things, like, it's still an awesome, like, William did an awesome job with this video. It's still like a fun watch. And the point of it, and which I'm sure you was about to bring up, is especially because the new show is coming out. So even if you're like a moderate Evil Dead fan, which normally I think you're either a diehard Evil Dead fan or not at all.
yeah, there's not
but
a
like
lot of
even
middle
if
ground.
even if you're a diehard, like, check it out, because it's an awesome little breakdown to get ready for the show. And it's just fun seeing, kind of the things you point out in there too, that you might miss unless you watch these films back to back, which I don't think I've ever sit down and marathoned all three at once.
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of my intent was just kind of looking at it, was like, okay, so what do people really need to know going into the show, just as a refresher, or if somebody just, is a more casual fan. Mm-hmm. And because I think they said the show, like, due to rights issues, once again, they don't really get to use stuff from Army of Darkness. So it's going to be more like Evil Dead 1 and 2 kind of that are the continuity. But like Evil Dead 3 will have happened, but they won't mention it.
Yeah.
Or Army of Darkness. And other news that came out this past week is about like what a possible Evil Dead 4 movie would have been. And if you've watched Army of Darkness and you've watched the special features, you know that there's like 2 endings that they have in it. So the theatrical ending and the one they have in the movie, and then one they filmed for it and didn't go with. And the normal, I guess spoilers for Army of Darkness from 1992, if you don't want to hear it.
Was it 92 or 93?
On IMDb it says 92.
Okay, you probably know.
And I think it was it debuted somewhere, but then like I think it was kind of more like a wide release in 93. But the I don't forget what I was saying.
Sorry, you were talking about. Thought you were talking about the show. Continuity.
Oh, on the movie. So they said like Evil Dead 4, if it had been made. So there's 2 endings. One of them is where Ash gets sent back to the present time and he kills a deadite, and then the movie ends. The other version was where he messes up and overshoots and wakes up like in a post-apocalyptic world. And their idea for the Evil Dead 4 was to have both of those versions exist, like both Ashes had that happen, and there'd be parallel timelines going on, and that would be an Evil Dead 4. Like, they didn't really said too many other story elements beyond that, but
that's pretty funny and interesting. And they said for the show they decided to focus on just the S-Mart Ash, or the S-Mart ending. But it's weird because they've always had that duality too with Ashes, like, when he becomes possessed, and then there's the evil Ash, good Ash. So
a goody little two shoes Ash.
Yeah, it I'm sure Sam Raimi would have made it work beautifully, but it sounds like a more as convoluted as kind of the storylines goes. Most of the Army of Darkness films have a straightforward plot. There's a clear goal in mind. So it seems like that would have been pretty hard to juggle, I think, and maybe a little much. To
get the studio to fund a sequel to a movie that last had a series entry. So I looked it up. So it debuted in February 19th, 93, but it was completed and shown in 92, which is why it shows up as the date in IMDb. And I just always use whatever's in IMDb because otherwise there's always like conflicting dates and somebody's going to gripe whichever way you do it. So But
Like me. Wait, wasn't it 93?
yeah, but so if they made that the Evil Dead 4, I just don't know that they would get a studio to plop down the money required to make that movie. Because none of them made a whole lot of money in theaters. They just became really big cult hits, and it's just like how much is that worth? But we do get the TV series, and it's going to be
Which they premiered the pilot in New York this past week too.
New York Comic Con. Everything that's came out of it, everybody loved it. But I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge an accurate reaction when you got to see it at a convention full of other super fans where everybody's super positive, because there's a ton of stuff that's been debuted at like Comic Con and people loved it, and then it actually hits and it's like
with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell in the audience,
but I mean, I have to think that it's the first time that Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi have returned to this universe in a very long time, so it should be awesome.
I just again, I'm like, as awesome as it is, I really wished he was directing the entire series. That's the only thing that's a huge bummer for me. Yeah,
and like, if they do second season, then, maybe that he does that or gets, directs more of them. But
and Bruce Campbell's, they've really been talking up, places the second season can go. So, it sounds like they're all in on that. If anything, at least hopefully Raimi directs at least another, like the pilot episode of that, I'd hate for it to go the other way and him not direct any episodes of the season 2.
Yep.
But we've still got season 1 to look forward to, which is premiering Halloween night on Stars.
Yeah,
and I'll be getting Stars just for that.
Yep, and I will find some way to watch it. All right, so I think that can kind of wrap up our what we're watching in news, and now I can move into a discussion of the 1979 classic Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. And if somehow you weren't aware of what this movie is about, the summary from IMDb: the commercial vessel Nostromo receives a distress call from an unexplored planet. After searching for survivors, the crew heads home only to realize a deadly bioform has joined them. And once again, this is a movie that even if people haven't watched it a lot, you probably have seen bits and pieces of it a ton. It has
probably one of the most iconic. I feel like I say this like every podcast, but really, this movie has one of the most iconic scenes in probably horror history. It also has a really great scene that makes fun of it in Spaceballs, if you've watched Spaceballs.
Yeah, the chest burster scene. I mean, we're going to do full spoilers.
Oh, yeah, full spoilers all the way through.
But, the chest burster scene would have had to have been pretty, crazy to audiences back then, because, the sci-fi horror film, because, they had done stuff where there's, big lizards and spiders and crap like that, or not crap, but just, movies that are more lighthearted, kind of like horror movies. But this was hard sci-fi and hard horror.
Hardcore.
There's an alien man and it just runs around and just chomp. But and two, when you rewatch this movie, aside from the direction, the performances, the H.R. Giger character designs and art and all that is just, still brilliant to watch now. I was watching the Blu-ray and I was like, man, this really, aside from the kind of outdated computer stuff, this could have been shot recently. It still looks that good.
Oh, yeah. The production design is again, with a lot of Ridley Scott films, top notch. He, because he has an art background, and he also too, I was, listening to the commentary this time because I've seen this movie a million times, it seems like, but he also was very careful to light the sets the way Giger painted them as well. So it wasn't just hard light on them or whatever. So they had the same texture and feel, which of course, if he hadn't done that, I'm sure it would not have nearly the same effect.
Well, another thing too that's kind of funny to think about is, when did Prometheus come out? 2011?
2012.
2012. So this one has, because Prometheus is essentially the prequel or a prequel to this. But it's funny because what were the guys called in Prometheus? The
engineers.
The engineers.
I think too, we can try to steer clear of talking about Prometheus because we talked about it so much in recent podcasts.
But it's just funny though, because this actually pertains to it in a degree, because you see a engineer, but it took almost 40 years to explain what it was.
Oh, the space jockey.
Yeah, he's a space jockey. Yeah. So it was interesting just to just to me, like when you first watch that film, you didn't get an answer to what exactly it was till nearly 40 years later.
Well, and two, I don't know that they necessarily knew when they made this. I mean,
That was going to happen. Yeah, I know, but it's just kind of interesting though. That like 40 years, you know.
And Nicole, when we were watching it too, you know, because I was like, "Do you mind watching with the commentaries?" I was like, "You've seen this a lot, right?" She's like, "Yeah, I've seen it like a ton of times because she always rewatches it with me." But while we were watching it, she didn't realize how much of this was tied to Prometheus because she's like, "I don't think I've seen this since we've watched Prometheus. This is like got a lot of the same stuff in there with the space jockey and stuff." And at the end of the commentary, which I think I may have listened to years ago, they were talking about Ridley Scott, Sigourney Weaver's talking about, yeah, you know, Alien 5, I'd love to get back into space. You know, there's been light talks, like we've just been like discussing it. This was the commentary from the 2003 version that's on the Blu-ray. And Ridley Scott brings up, he's like, I think it would be really interesting to figure out where the space jockey came from. And he keeps like harping on that. So
yeah,
that had been churning in his mind since probably well before 2003.
I think too that was like a really interesting set too, just because it was dark and mysterious, and it made the film interesting. Because like I think anytime you have stuff like that, it gives you more questions and answers. While it can be a little frustrating, it does make it a little more intriguing. You know, because it didn't over-explain anything. You know, you didn't really, because in later films they maybe not over-explain, but you know how the alien eggs got there, and in this one you don't really know why they're there. You know, other than maybe some type of. Because in this one, there was no setup to it. They were just there.
Yeah, you know? And like a lot, we've discussed with horror films before. Once you've kind of pulled back the curtain, things like aren't as scary anymore, which is good. I mean, that was a perfect. James Cameron had a perfect approach for Aliens because the curtain was pulled back. And Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the screenplay for this, he's also kind of harps on the fact in the commentary about how any exposition or explanation for things that didn't feel natural or things they wouldn't have brought up anyway, he didn't put in the script because it wasn't about that. You know, this whole film is like a haunted house movie essentially.
Yeah.
It's like and that's the genius of it. Like it's, you know, not to bash it on it, but Prometheus, I liked Prometheus. It wasn't perfect, but you know, Damien Lindelof, you know, he had his typical plot line that kind of got a little, I don't want to say convoluted, but it was more involved. It wasn't as straight. There's an alien on the ship we need to get off, and then the kind of the subplot of, you know, the reason this all happened because of this greedy corporation. You know, it's like there's basically a couple things going on in the film, and that's it. And he's able to hang everything on that and just do it expertly.
Well, you know, like the guy that got lowered down into the ship and was exploring everything. You know, it's kind of those things like anything we've learned in movies. You know, is if I'm anywhere and I walk in and see something like that, my ass is getting out. I'm not looking. I'm done. You know, but here the egg opens up, you know, and he kind of walks over to look at it, and then it spits acid in his face, and then he gets a face hugger, you know, which, you know, and the face huggers are one of the creepier things too. Like I always hate them, and they're I just don't like them, you know, like they're just I just, you know, I don't know. It's just one of those things in those movies, like whoever came up with the design created something very well because I just hate them.
Not to harp on the commentary, but Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the screenplay, he kind of was really, he said a lot of people, as far as production design, were worried about how the alien looked. And he said, you know, we really got to pay attention to with the face huggers because that's going to be a big part of it too. Like he said, you know, they weren't paying enough attention to it. So he kind of, Giger threw a design at him with the fingers sort of.
Yeah, that's why it's just disturbing.
Yeah. And then he kind of went back and worked on it, and he worked with somebody who kind of figured out the anatomy of the inside. And then when they made the sculpture of it, they hadn't painted it yet, and it was like human skin color, Caucasian color. And he was like, no, why don't we leave it like that because it looks more natural and stuff. And yeah, just as good as the design of the alien is, like the face hugger is also like can't be beat. You know, you can't improve on that design at all.
And like a lot of other things have been influenced by that. Like if you look to the Half-Life series, the head crabs are kind of heavily influenced by that. Yeah. And you know, there's just so many movies that after this came out kind of used this, like the alien template. Mm-hmm. And you know, one thing it did too for the time, not necessarily today in any way, shape, or form, but for the time it had a relatively diverse cast for a sci-fi film because, you know, your main character is a female who's relatively young. And of course, you know, you have, you know, white crew members, but you also have, you know, like a black crew member and, you know, another female. So it wasn't a complete sausage party like a lot of movies tended to
Yeah.
be.
Well, it's like another step from the original Night of the Living Dead, having a black male lead character and stuff. With this, you had a female lead of what you would typically have a male lead in this role.
And two, I don't really want to reduce it to this, but like you could almost say in the first movie that Ripley almost kind of gets like to be the final girl, kind of. Mm-hmm. Of more akin to like a horror movie role for a female.
Yeah.
In later entries, she became, the main like action hero and stuff like that.
Oh, it's because she was one that had experience, though. Like in the second one, she's already lived through it. She knows,
Yeah, and she knows like get away from her, you bitch. Or is it stay away? I don't. That was something I mentioned.
I thought it was get away.
Yeah. Because there was a while that was in one of those commercials for DirecTV where like they have the characters like talking to the camera and
you bitch.
They didn't have that part, did they? But it's just this movie, like I said, kind of having it be the almost like a horror, like a haunted house movie with an alien in space.
And the production design, was just so far. Like, granted, it's after Star Wars, but
but when you rewatch this, the elements of it, they're like the models and things for the ships. I think those actually hold up better than Star Wars because they were used much more sparingly and shot in a much like darker settings and
the less light you give something sometimes makes it look better because you don't see all the flaws.
They said they just got a bunch of as far as the interiors, they got a bunch of internal parts of aircrafts that weren't being used. Old airplanes and stuff like that, and helicopters, I guess, and just ripped all those out and built it. But yeah, the production design is just like top notch. The atmosphere, like that's what Ridley Scott does so well, and because he can handle atmosphere and just the design of every element of this. You can have a simple story and it just keeps you locked in because you're just in the movie and again, there's like really not much to improve on. Granted, there's a couple things that look like a little dated, but considering this movie was made in when it was it 77? Is that when or 70?
It was released in 79. I don't know exactly when they were filming it, but
Star Wars was 77. That's why I was thinking of that. But it's like, this movie could have you would almost not even expect this movie to come out of the late 80s, let alone the late 70s, with how good it looks.
Yeah, because it seems like, you said like on the story, they didn't include anything that wasn't necessary to tell the story they were telling. On the visuals, I think they left out everything that just didn't look good, which is something that movies today just don't do anymore. They just include terrible CGI that's going to age very poorly.
Yeah.
And even stuff...
Go ahead.
And even stuff that looks okay that's going to age poorly, like they'll overuse it. And I see like Ridley Scott tends to show movies that look good that can, stand up over time.
He has a huge attention to detail, and I think he's a really big problem solver, and he tries to, he figures out how to make the most of what he has. Granted, he has very high expectations and always puts his crew to task as far as with this and like Blade Runner and stuff, but the crashed ship that the space jockey's in, what is that called?
Did they give it a name in this?
It has a name because it's different than I think, I'm not for sure. Well, anyway, apparently the scale model was only like 1.5 feet tall or something, and he walked in the room and was like, oh my god, how am I going to shoot this? So this guy's just a genius. He was very young at this time. He'd only done one feature film and a ton of commercials and stuff. But he said, does anybody have like a VHS camcorder, which was very new in 1979? And some guy said, yeah, I do. He said, go home and get it. So he knew with that, like a big film camera, he couldn't get it low to the ground and move around. So he basically just held it low and did those kind of like moving shots. And, so it looked like somebody was looking up at it, and that was their camera on their helmet, like, looking up at the ship as they're walking up to it. Yeah. Then he like played it back on a TV and shot it on film of the TV monitor showing the feed from that.
Yeah.
And it was a 1.5 feet scale, and because it was through a VHS tape and everything else, like, you didn't even know the difference. Like, it looked like it was a giant thing they built. It's just
the ship was the ship was called the Derelict, or what they refer to it as.
derelict my. The one thing like that I really loved about this movie too is the spacesuit design. Like, it's just funny to see like what people back then thought the things would look like. You know, and it's kind of ridiculous looking. That's like the only thing. I enjoy it. It's very 70s.
It almost looks more like medieval too, like the actual the style of the spacesuits.
Yeah, it is really cumbersome, and it's but I don't know. I liked it. You know, compared to like I'm just using this because it's a comparison. You know, it's Prometheus where now they're like, and this is just the day and age too. Everything's more form fitting. It just looks more what you would think something would look like. But in this movie, like they kind of look like, like you said, look remedial times in space, but it fit the film. And, it wasn't.
Go ahead.
It fit the film, I mean, I think it's the most important thing.
Everything was very cohesive about the production design, and it all felt like a real place. But to be fair, like not to go into Prometheus too much, but I want to rewatch that film now because I love the production design so much. And I actually think they handled it expertly in Prometheus as far as changing it and making it appropriate, like aside from the way they did the Star Wars prequels, which were like fine at the time. I kind of liked them. They were kind of interesting, like what they did because things are supposed to be new. But it's just like the production design on the original Alien was to me better than Star Wars, and the production design on Prometheus was better than the Star Wars prequels. It's just I love watching Ridley Scott films for that.
We all just need to go watch a Star Wars.
No. But I think too, like if you want to create some internal logic as to why the equipment in Alien looks, so much more ancient than the equipment used in the prequel to this movie, I guess you could theoretically say since like a for-profit like mining operation or a tanker, if you look at the electronics and a lot of construction equipment, like they'll keep cranes and stuff that are from 30 years ago if they still work and are in good working order. So
for example, like I know this is a little different, like but I work on buses and we have shit that's 20 years old.
So maybe
we use it all the time.
And the thing from Prometheus was like the top of the line, the newest technology, and the most money Wayland Corp was putting into that. And this was just a little bitty, like you said, essentially like oil rig in space mining.
But are they still run by Wayland Corp though in Alien too?
Yeah,
or just Alien? Yeah.
Well, it's essentially like in the future, there's one company that owns almost everything, and it's Whaley Utani Corp. Mm-hmm. But one other thing too in this movie that when I was rewatching it, like in terms of like their futurism type things, where they're kind of predicting where technology is going, like they were kind of on the mark. Just since it was shot in the 70s, technology was still like a lot of command line stuff like that. But like the idea that they had like the ship's computer mother that they could ask questions and it would answer, like it's almost like Siri and Google now as they are today.
Or Jarvis.
Kind of like like naturalistic computing where you kind of ask things like that. So they kind of had an idea, like that's pretty close to what people are trying to do now.
Yeah, and to go off that too, he wanted a jumping off point. It's 2001. It was a jumping off point from that. Just took things further, with HAL and everything.
Yeah.
From that film, but even the production design, he said, I want it to look like 2001, but dirty.
Real fast, something we haven't talked about yet is the guy that was actually in the alien suit was like what 6'8" or close to 7 foot tall, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was like an artist or something like that.
Yeah,
don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Balaji Badajo.
Yeah,
Badejo.
He's a very tall man, but it was just kind of cool though, like that suit was all practical. It was just a dude in a suit,
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, he's like a really tall, lanky guy.
Oh, he was 6'10".
6'10", yeah. Like I work with a guy that's 6'10", and they're large people, So I don't know. It's just like funny to think like to have somebody that tall run around in a suit,
Well, and two, the alien was very intimidating in this movie, and they only saw it really in glimpses. You never really got like a full body, well lit shot. But I think part of that's because the time and the budget and the fact that just a dude in a suit. But the way that they did shoot it still made it like scary. And if you just put yourself in their shoes, if you were in real life and saw something like that, you probably filled in as looking a little bit more terrifying than it is in the movie. And like what would you do in that situation? And a lot of these characters do things that aren't too far out of what people would really do.
Yeah, it's so great how they he melds the production design and the directing and, you know, the character design, because you're always towards the end when like lights are flashing and she's, you know, they're going down the hallways and stuff. You're always kind of looking at the corner of your eye for the alien and looking around. And it's just, you know, he builds tension in a certain way where he took advantage of the situation, because if you were in a typical haunted house, like obviously a killer's not going to be like standing up against the wall and you miss it, you know, but in this situation, he really used the environment to its full effect and took advantage of it instead of just making it a hallway and you're waiting to turn that corner. Like you never know where it's going to be.
One thing I like about this movie too, in terms of the characters, is they mostly just gave everybody kind of like one name, like just like taking first and last names, you know, like Ripley, Dallas, Kane, Lambert, Brett, Ash, Parker. So you had characters that were pretty easy to remember who they were and what their names were.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have these movies, especially like a tendency of bad sci-fis to give people names like John Cloudhopper. And,
like a Lord of the Rings type, yeah. Or
just,
Luke Skywalker, John Cloudhopper. That sounds like a little knockoff thing.
Well, Star Wars I thought did it effectively because you kind of knew everybody's names, but a lot of those movies...
Star Wars.
Jar Jar.
A lot of those movies will give characters hard to remember names.
Yeah, or just like they try to make or they try to pay too much homage to other movies in the genre. And like you said, they end up with like Cloud McHopper, you know, or like Scooty McFiverson. But, you know, like, too, like the character actions, all that, like, were, you know, like all pretty believable. And, you know, ended up kind of like the main bad guy in the movie beyond just the alien was greed and, you know, Ash operating on the orders of the company to retrieve this, you know, biological organism to be used as possible like a weapon. Yeah. And if history has shown us anything, that's a terrible idea and it'll never work. So stop trying to do it. But it's just don't do it. It's just, you know, the characters all have pretty clear motivations, and, you know, you just have actors like Harry Dean Stanton, who's been in so many things and so many good things and still kicking around today. Like, he was on a podcast I listened to not too long ago. I think it's like last year. And he said that John Carpenter was going to make like a detective series for him in the 80s. And he's going to get a bunch of poon from it. That's what he claimed. So he's just awesome. He's in a ton of great stuff. And, you know, it's kind of funny, too, like, with Sigourney Weaver in this movie. You forget how, like, young-looking she was in it. Because when this movie came out, she would have been just right around 30, I think. So it's just funny seeing, like, how fresh-faced and young she looked in this first movie.
Yeah. And she's phenomenal in this, too. Like, you know, the entire cast, Scott talks about, like, casting was a big thing for him, and he's always spends tons of time on that, and it shows with this film. Like, it's just some of the best character actors. I mean, really, this film, like, it could not have came together better. You know, I don't think even Jerry Goldsmith, you know, the score on it was just amazing. Didn't Dallas kind of, I forget the character names, but didn't Dallas kind of take almost like a lead role at one point, like trying to get the alien? Well, he was the captain. Yeah. But kind of assume he's going to be the hero. Of the movie that's where I was going with this. Yeah, you kind of assume that he's going to be a hero, and then he's not, you know. But like, I kind of like when movies do that. You always kind of, you know, because now, like, you know, I'd say that was like a completely new, fresh idea then either. But now it's kind of like maybe not overplayed and all that, but it's just kind of nice to see that. And then it, like you said, we talked about this earlier with Sigourney Weaver, where she was kind of like end up being the main focal point. Well, and two, like, one thing just to kind of compare and contrast this to some of the other, like, classic horror films. A lot of times you watch stuff and, like, the acting is kind of the time. It's not this even a horror film, but, like, Star Wars. Like, the acting in it sometimes was a little bit corny, but it was done in a way that, you know, came across as enjoyable, and the cast had great chemistry, so it worked. But, like, you know, like in this movie, in Alien, you compare it to say something like Halloween. Like, Halloween, I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But some of the acting between, like, Laurie's friends is, you know, like a little bit on the edges, you know, because they weren't great actresses. They didn't have a ton of experience, and it was kind of like earlier in their careers. As opposed to everybody in this movie is kind of on point, and there wasn't a single moment while watching I was like, oh, you know, it all still felt contemporary, and, you know. It felt, again, it's the casting, you know, it's like, could not have been better. And he also apparently set up multiple cameras for a lot of scenes, so it had like more of a documentary feel. And he said he loved catching those little moments. So I think he, like, you know, spent time rolling on stuff and letting the actors kind of explore some of the scenes. And which shows, you know, it's like sometimes you have those directors that pay attention to production design and you know the visuals and everything, but they may not have a story come together right or know how to direct actors. And like Ridley Scott, dude has it all, and still to this day, you know.
Yeah, and it's just so I guess too we can kind of start wrapping up our thoughts on the movie and kind of, you know, too, like where we think it fits in the Alien series, because, you know, it's one of the more successful series about, you know, science fiction, things like this. And, you know, kind of start with, you know, like, so like we said plenty of times, like this movie just, you know, the art direction and the suits and all that alone in this movie are worth watching it for, beyond the fact that it's got, you know, like a great straightforward plot. It's got, you know, great casting and acting, and it's a movie that just kind of really holds together, and there's not really anything that dates it aside from, you know, small things like the computers they use, but there's no way they could have avoided that because, you know, in 79, they, you know, wasn't like today where you can like CGI in anything you want. You had to use what actually existed.
Yeah.
And even then, like, you know, it's not completely unbelievable that construction equipment, you know, 50 years from now will have interfaces similar to that, because a lot of that stuff moves so slowly on getting updated. Mm-hmm. And, you know,
especially if they've been out for a very long time, you know,
yeah,
and the ships are never back home long enough to update.
And, you know, and this is too, you know, it's a sci-fi film that's got heavy horror elements. I think it pretty firmly sits in the horror genre compared to some of the later entries.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think out of all the Alien movies, even though I've probably watched Aliens the most, like, so the James Cameron sequel, I still think that the first one is probably the best pure movie out of all of them. It's, you know, set a new benchmark for horror and for sci-fi, and kind of gave everybody something to aspire to in horror. Mm-hmm. So 79 was like that, 78, 79, 80, like that was a pretty good era for horror, you know, kind of set up what would come after it with, you know, Halloween and this and
yeah, it really did usher in a new wave of horror and kind of set the bar for it set a bar in a position where it, I feel like, has not been, you know what I mean? I don't think that bar's been jumped over yet. Like there's definitely been a lot of great films that have kind of pushed things further, but there hasn't been that leap from how many great films came out in that era. And it's the nature of, it's just harder to keep coming up with new stuff. And as things are done, it's like, you can't make something as fresh as you could back then also.
Well, too, the amount of money these movies made at the time that they came out was huge, because like in 1979, Alien in the U.S. grossed $78.9 million and $182 million worldwide, which would still be great for a horror movie today. And if you look at, you know, if you adjust it for inflation, that was a huge, huge, huge hit. And I don't know that movies coming out this day and age that are so heavily focused on the horror elements would make the same amount of money.
Yeah. Because
recently, I think The Conjuring has been one of the highest grossing horror films that made like $130 million or so.
Yeah. He also, too, was apparently, I think he fought to get more money for 4 more shooting days, because the movie was supposed to end at the point to where, you know, she gets in the ship and takes off. And he convinced him to kind of go one step further and add like a 4th act. He said, which didn't really happen at the time. But now it's like movies always have an ending and then another ending and then another ending. But it's just like another one of those things where they just kept pushing the bar and they just pioneered a lot of things at once with this film.
Yep. So we just lost Derek due to a technical issue. But so I guess we can just move on to it. Do you have anything else to add, Sean, before we wrap this episode up?
It's my favorite Alien film. Aliens is awesome. I even enjoy, you know, the director's cut of Alien 3. Like, it's still better than a lot of films. And Alien 4, I like that just based on how weird it is. That's just like a fun, goofy movie. Like, yeah, so much stupid stuff in it. But, you know, for the most part, it's inoffensive. But yeah, Alien and Alien and Aliens are obviously the highlights of that franchise. But Alien, it is alone just probably one of my favorite films of all time. Yeah, that's also my dog's name's Ripley, so that shows you.
Well, it's like it almost feels to me like so Alien and Aliens feel kind of like a separate set of movies from the sequels that came after it. Mm-hmm. And I just really wish that they had either Ridley Scott or James Cameron do later entries in the franchise. But
yeah, or it would have been awesome to see Fincher that would have been able to not being thrown into that tackle 3,
not get a bunch of rewrites and changes.
Yeah, or if he would have still had, if he would have had the same pull as he had even a few years, a few films into his filmography. That way, he could have kind of made more demands and got them instead of being like a fresh-faced director that kind of let people push. I think that was the issue. He said he let people push him around on that film because he was so new and he didn't have any, rightfully so almost. I mean, he was a director, but at the same time, I guess he felt like he let people bulldoze over him. But
that's a big thing that happens in this day and age. They take like a relatively unknown director who comes from like music videos or short films or something and gives him a feature, and then the studio kind of bowls over him and makes him do everything they wanted to do, like kind of just like business decision wise versus actually what creatively works.
Yeah, and it's like, why did you even hire this person? You could have got anybody in that case.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, Alien. I could watch this film over and over again, and it's fun every single time. One of the best, for sure, horror films of all time, and one of my favorite films of all time.
And it's a movie, too, that I think you can still show to people that have never watched it who are younger. Mm-hmm. And it's not one of those movies that like becomes laughable almost, in light of where things are at today, technology-wise and gore and everything. Like, I don't think it's anything that doesn't hold up. So you can still show it to people, and they won't have, any laugh-out-loud moments. Like I said, like earlier, like those movies, like the sci-fi movies where it's like the big lizard or spider or something.
Yeah.
Like it's something like that. It's still holds up very, very well. So if you like what we're doing with the podcast, as always, you can go into iTunes and give us a review. And you can also make comments, or you can comment on the social media posts when we release these, or on the site. Just kind of let us know what you're thinking. Or if you're listening through YouTube, you can leave a comment there, as we do get feedback there from time to time. And if you like any of the other things we're doing, you can go to housebythevideostore.com to see all the content we're releasing. And since it's the month of October and, Halloween's coming up soon, we'll be having new stuff get released throughout the month, or sharing some of our stuff from last year if you haven't seen all of it. Just because, it is the month of the year that is horror movie focused. And then on the website, you can also find all the links to our social media accounts of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vimeo, Vine, YouTube. I think that's all of them.
Google Plus.
Yeah, Google Plus. I don't know.
There's a plethora of social media sites.
Yeah, we got a Friendster account and
MySpace.
MySpace. Oh, geez.
Well, do we have a Periscope? Right, we have one.
Yes, I've never used it, but it's been set up.
So next weekend we're doing a horror film competition in Louisville. I didn't talk to you about this yet, but I thought if we had the time and somebody to kind of handle this, we could even Periscope a little bit of it along the way, possibly. Yeah. If anything, we can maybe just make some short video blogs from it, or tweet some updates, maybe some pictures. So follow us on some social media. We'll probably, if we do any blasts like that, it'll probably be through Instagram and Twitter. And then, of course, Periscope's its own thing. But we won't overshare that stuff on Facebook, so we won't annoy anybody.
Yeah, if you post on Periscope, it automatically post to Twitter with links to bring you into it. So
follow us on Twitter, too, at HBTVS_official. And my Twitter account is @BlevinSean, and yours, William?
It is @Will_droid.
And what is Derek's Twitter and Instagram?
So his Twitter is DWCAPP90, and his Instagram is MetaWorldDerek. And I think he uses Instagram quite a bit more than Twitter, but he does have one. So that's where you can find us on the internet. And as always, thanks for listening.
House by the Video Store.